Welcome back everyone to more NASCAR 21 content here at Knee Pit Gaming. And in today's video, we're going to talk new information that I believe sheds light on the future direction of not only NASCAR 21, but the entire NASCAR franchise under the helm of Motorsport Games. But before we get there, let's take a moment and rewind back to the very first video I did on NASCAR 21. Now the mood of that video was one of excitement and optimism, because at that point we really didn't have anything confirmed other than the new title of NASCAR 21 and a few pieces of information such as the move away from the NASCAR Heat franchise, the move away from the Unity game engine, and moving over to the Unreal game engine for the graphics and the R-Factor 2 title for the physics. But that's really about all we knew about the direction of the franchise. Well, today we're going to be talking about this new information that I believe sets the stage for exactly where this new franchise is going. We're going to get started today on the IGN website with an article that accompanied the release of the reveal trailer. But then, after that, we're actually going to move over to the main NASCAR 21 website through Motorsport Games and take a look at some of the facts that they have released about the game itself. As we get started today, keep in mind, I'll have links in the description down below for all of the content that we talk about in today's video. But let's go ahead and get started with a couple of pieces of information that we've all been waiting to get confirmation on. And the first is the release date. October 28th, 2021 has now been confirmed. The next, where can you play the game? What platforms will it be available on? Well, at launch, we're looking at PlayStation 4, Xbox One, and then the Steam platform on PC. You also notice that they mention PlayStation 5 and the Xbox Series X or S will follow post-launch, but we're not exactly sure how long post-launch are we dealing with. Maybe a few weeks or a few months. We don't really have any information solid on that part of it, but we do know that support is coming for the newest next-gen consoles. So what type of information did we get? Well, you're going to find some articles like the one we're looking at right now from IGN, and then you're going to find a reveal trailer, which you can choose to watch embedded here within the IGN article, or again, I'll have the link in the description below, straight to the YouTube page for the game. The reveal trailer, we're not going to be going frame by frame through it. Instead, I'm simply going to mention a couple of things that I took away from the trailer. Now you have to keep in mind, it's a reveal trailer. It's only a minute long, so there's a lot of jump cuts, a lot of short pieces of information, and really, it's going to do exactly what a reveal trailer is supposed to do. They're going to focus on the finest aspects of the game, the parts of the game they want you to know about at this point in the marketing schedule. So the first thing I took away from the reveal trailer is they do have some nice visuals. As I talked about in the very first NASCAR 21 game when we were looking at a few screenshots, I like some of the lighting elements, and you can see a little bit of that here on the page right now as you see some of the reflections and what I believe is some nice looking lighting effects here in the garage area as well as on the car itself. The second part is the AI. There are some troubling things that I saw and behavior that I saw from the AI that you might not recognize if you're not familiar with some of the previous ISI titles and some of the R-Factor 1 and 2 behavior of the AI. If you're familiar with that, then you probably noticed a few things that give you reason to pause and to worry a little bit about where the AI is in this game and how their general behavior is going to be. Again, this is a reveal trailer. You have a minute total in the game, and of course the AI only appear in small portions of that, but it was enough to give me reason to pause and take back some of the optimism that I had going into this information. A couple of other things that I want to point out from this IGN article before we move over to the main NASCAR 21 website for a few other things that I want to focus on today. Number one is we now have confirmation that we're only looking at the NASCAR Cup Series. There will be no trucks, no dirt series, real or otherwise, and there will be no Xfinity here in the first title. Now, it doesn't, I don't believe, completely rule out for the future as far as DLC, but we certainly have no indication that the trucks or Xfinity or any other content is coming anytime soon. When they talk about the season pass, just above it, they talk about the fact that there are going to be some additional legends other than Bill Elliott that are going to be coming to the game as part of the season pass. So we certainly have no reason to expect, I don't believe, at this point that we're going to get anything beyond the Cup content in NASCAR 21, and then I'm sure it'll be coming down the road, whether that's NASCAR 22, 23, or what have you. But for right now, all we should expect is the Cup Series and a primary focus on that for the time being. Also, one of the main worrying parts for me was a couple of statements that they put in. All right, so we have a quote from the Motorsport Games CEO where he talks about this will not be as broad as the NASCAR Heat 5 game or the NASCAR Heat Series in general, but they've chosen to focus this first installment of the new series and dedicate all of their resources to making sure the core NASCAR experience was as close to perfect as it could be. The troubling part there for me, and it's just marketing speak, is when they talk about the core NASCAR experience. So basically there's two ways I believe that you can go about creating a racing game or a racing simulation. And the first path would be pure simulation. This is what iRacing is attempting to do. They want the game to be as realistic as possible with regards to the handling of the car. They want the physics to be as perfect as possible. That includes tires, aerodynamics, everything about the car. That's more of the side I lean toward. I want realism in the driving experience in the car. That's where the fun lies with me. I want the most intense experience, the most realistic experience of driving the car that I can get. And of course, if you're familiar with us here at NPIT Gaming, then you know I spend a lot of time talking about setups and about driving the car, and that's where my passion overall lies. Doesn't mean I don't have a lot of fun with titles such as NASCAR Heat or presumably the new NASCAR 21 game and beyond, but it simply means that's not where my passion lies. And when I see things like the core NASCAR experience, it gives me pause that maybe we're going the other direction, meaning that the focus is going to be on contact and wrecks and more of the pageantry of the game, like you would see something like a Formula One title, which certainly has quite a bit of that involved in it. So we know that we're not getting the trucks, we're not getting Xfinity, and we're not getting any Dirt Series, Fantasy, or Real World, at least for the time being. Now, why would they do that? Well, they tell us here. It's because probably 90% of our users or higher play just Cup. And I can confirm some of that based on the content I've done here on the channel. When I do Cup content, it does better than Xfinity or the truck content that I create. So I can certainly understand where they're coming from here and the information they're getting as far as feedback from us as the people who are playing the games. 90% of the users are only playing Cup. So again, that's what they're going to focus on because that seems to be where everything is going. That's what we're interested in as the players, and so that's what they're going to give us. So if we move a little bit farther down, again, they're going to give some more screenshots and give an opportunity to see what I believe are very well done screenshots. I'm going to reserve, as always, my final thoughts on this once the game comes out and I get a chance to get in the game and see what it looks like visually once I'm playing it. But for now, the screenshots are doing their job. They're showing off what I believe are some very well done graphics and lighting effects. So well done on that perspective. But again, it's very limited as far as I'm concerned on what it overall tells us about the upcoming game. Now, we do have a few other pieces of information available here, and that is that we're going to have a full career mode, which we're going to talk quite a bit more about here coming up shortly when we get to the main website for the game. But we also are going to have 40-player online races. Now, hopefully, multiplayer in the new NASCAR 21 series is going to do better than NASCAR Heat because multiplayer was kind of spotty. The races were more few and far between on that platform. So hopefully we're going to have a lot more activity here in the reboot of the franchise as opposed to what we've seen in the past. Also, they do talk about unparalleled levels of customization through the new paint booth. Now, they've mentioned a little bit about this in the past, but now they continue to talk about the new paint booth and how expansive it's going to be. We'll wait and see, but it does seem to be something that they are really focusing on and something they really want us as the future players of the game to know about. But then the most troubling quote in the entire article, and this is really the reason why I wanted to start here, is at the very end. And again, we're dealing with the CEO himself of Motorsport Games. So I'm going to highlight exactly what we're talking about. We've designed this game with our fans and players in mind, bringing them features, modes, and options they have long clamored for. Now, if you just stop right there, that tells me they have taken all of the feedback from the NASCAR Heat franchise through 5 years and 5 iterations of that franchise, and they've listened. What have we as the players wanted from the NASCAR Heat franchise that we never quite got? What were the improvements we were looking for? And of course, the customization plays right into that, because I know that was a huge addition that we as the players were looking for overall. So they've taken all of that feedback, and that's how they've designed NASCAR 21 and how they've planned the franchise going forward. So keep that in mind as we learn more and more about the game. So NASCAR 21 Ignition captures the atmosphere, pageantry, and fierce competition of the NASCAR Cup Series while offering authenticity, competition, and accessibility through the game's core foundations. Now, as I mentioned a little bit further up in the article, what bothers me here is when I see things like captures the atmosphere, pageantry, and competition. This brings to mind things like the rival system that we saw in the NASCAR Heat franchise, which, as far as I'm concerned, never really went anywhere. You could have rivals, but it was extremely easy to avoid that. In fact, in my entirety of career mode gameplay through each iteration of the game where rivals were part, I don't remember ever having a single rival, even though we had contact on multiple occasions with different drivers. So it was something that really never caught on in my experience. Now, obviously everybody's going to be different. Some of you may have had a lot of fierce rivals in the game, but for me, it just wasn't that big a deal. But when I see things like this, I think of a lot of contact, a focus on the wrecks, and a lot of things other than the sheer joy of driving the car and trying to manhandle the car and get the most out of it, which of course, as I mentioned earlier, is what I'm interested in. So a lot of these things that we're starting to get as far as new information are giving me reason to pause and dampening my expectations a little bit, and in some cases, quite a bit, especially when you're talking about the AI. So that's going to do it for the IGN article. Now let's move over to the main game website. As we move over to the official NASCAR 21 website, we're going to focus on the facts page. Although, as you see at the top of the screen, we also have the home page and the features page, which are certainly worth checking out, particularly if you're not very familiar with the game. Here on the facts page, we get started with the different additions to the game. So you have your standard edition as well as the Champions Edition. Now the Champions Edition is going to be the most expensive, but it's going to give you access to everything that is coming. All of the content, both DLC as well as any bonus content that will be available for the game at launch or in the future. The standard edition to the game, of course, is just going to give you access to the game as well as a couple of bonuses if you decide to pre-order the game before launch. There's also going to be a season pass, which is included with the Champions Edition, but should you decide to go with the standard edition and then purchase the season pass, you notice there are a couple of things that you're going to miss out on that are only in the Champions Edition. Number one, the ability to play as Bill Elliott in the game, as well as the paint schemes along with that. The second is the in-game career booster. Now, what is that, you might ask? Well, we're going to find out in just a moment. So that gives you an idea of which versions and editions of the game will be available. Now let's move down into the real meat of what I wanted to talk about today, and that is the career mode. So here in the career mode, they do answer a few questions that we've pretty much all had as we move into the reboot of the NASCAR franchise. First, will you be able to create your own character? And the answer is yes, and there's going to be a lot of customization around that. Not only with the appearance, but of course with some other things that are going to happen regarding contracts in the game, as that is going to be a main focus here. Now, can you create your own team as we've been able to do in the NASCAR Heat franchise? And the answer is no. Now, this broke my heart that they removed that from the game. I can understand from a business point of view, because as we've already seen in the IGN article where the CEO talks about 90% of the players only played and used the Cup cars. So that tells me that in career mode, probably not a vast majority of the people were doing the starting your own team and working your way up. Of course, if you're familiar with the career mode series that I do here on the channel, that was the entire focus. Starting our own team, being a terrible team with a terrible car, and then working over time to invest our money, purchase the upgrades, and eventually get to where we could compete for podium finishes, race wins, and ultimately championships. That is gone. Instead, we're dealing with contracts now. So this is something that reminds me heavily of the Formula One series, where even though the Formula One series has added the ability to start your own team in recent years, the focus of the Formula One series has always been on the drama of being a Formula One driver and the storyline behind that, which brings me to the notion that I believe that's where this series is going. I believe they're going to take a lot from the Formula One series and implement it and choose that as their direction. So what are we going to be doing in the career mode? If we can't start our own team, how do we get a ride? Well, you're going to compete for contracts. We saw some of this in the NASCAR Heat franchise, where throughout the season, you would get offers to drive for a certain car in the next season. Well, they're bringing that into this particular reboot of the NASCAR franchise, and I believe a major focus is going to be the drama that surrounds receiving contract offers for the next season. In fact, it even mentions that you're going to have the ability to receive the offer as well as perhaps throw back a counter offer and see if the team agrees to it. Now, of course, that brings to mind money. And so as you're negotiating these new contracts, what are we going to use all this money for? If we don't own our own team, what kind of upgrades are going to be available for us to purchase? Why would money even matter? So a lot of questions that this brings about with regards to the money, but I have no doubts that they're going to try to incorporate that into the drama of being a NASCAR driver instead of what we've seen in the past, which is simply moving from team to team. Now, also in here, it mentions that you're not going to be able to get just any car and any ride in the Cup Series. There are going to be what's considered franchise drivers that are in the series. These are rides that you will not be able to get. So we have a little bit of new information about the direction of the game and about the direction of the career mode. And I must say, part of it, I understand where they're coming from and why they've chosen this direction, given what some other games have done with this and the success they've had with it. But it really, really breaks my heart that we're not going to be able to start our own team. And instead, we're going to have to compete for contracts, which, hey, we're going to go with it. I am definitely going to be picking up this title, and you're going to see full coverage of it here on the channel here at NPIT Gaming. But it does take a little bit away with some of the information that I've learned today. Now let's talk finally about the Career Booster. So it's only available in the Champions Edition. So what is the Career Booster? Well, when you get into the career mode, you're going to have the opportunity to start with a full season contract and compete for a championship right away without having to go through negotiations and presumably starting with a lesser team and then moving your way up through the ranks. So if you're not interested in that part of it, if you want to go straight to competing for championships, it would appear as though Career Booster is the way you want to go. So that's going to do it for today. Hey, let me know. What are you thinking? Let me know in the comment section down below, and head over to our NPIT Gaming Discord and let me know what you're thinking. Is this new information we've learned over the past few days, has it heightened your enthusiasm for the game? Or maybe there's some things changed that you didn't really want to see changed in the NASCAR series. That's going to do it for today. Thank you guys so much for joining me, and stick around for more NASCAR 21 coverage here at NPIT Gaming.